Hi everyone! I am so excited to show you the third book in my Museum Kitten series. This is the Sleepover Mystery and it's all about Bianca, the rather spoiled, slightly conceited white kitten who thinks she's the princess of the whole museum. Now, I really loved writing this book. For a start, it's quite fun writing about a character who is a bit too full of themselves, a little bit arrogant. But also, as you can see from the beautiful cover, which was drawn by Sarah Lodge, in this book there are dolls' houses. A doll's house plays a very important part in the story. I've always loved dolls' houses. I love tiny things, miniature things. So it was really fun getting to put a beautiful doll's house in this book. And also in this book, some of my favourite characters in this series, even though they're supposed to be the baddies, the rats have a very, very big role. So I'm going to read you a bit of chapter 4, and you'll see that Bianca has had an argument with the other kittens. She is starting to think that maybe she doesn't want to live at the museum at all anymore. She might like to go and become a pet kitten instead. There is a sleepover, a children's sleepover happening at the museum, and all the children are making a huge fuss of Bianca, and she's thinking that maybe this is what she wants out of her life instead of guarding all these dusty old treasures. So let's see what happens. Bianca crept through the museum, her paws silent as silk. She'd had to make an appearance at supper, even though she wasn't all that hungry. She didn't want Ma fussing around trying to find her, or worse still, Grandpa Ivan. He'd already noticed that she wasn't talking to the others. He'd cornered her at supper and given her one of his sharp looks. Bianca wasn't sure how he managed to see so much when he only had one eye. "All on your own, little miss," he'd growled. Bianca had opened her eyes very wide and tried to look innocent, but the old white cat hadn't been having any of it. "Whatever squabble you've had with the others, you'd be better off swallowing your pride. You'll regret it if you don't, white kitten whose name I'll remember in a minute." Silly old Grandpa, Bianca thought crossly as she made her way to the dinosaur gallery. What did he know about it? Why should she have to hang around in the cellars with the other kittens when there were people who actually wanted to see her? She'd been stroked and petted and called beautiful all day, and she had loved it. If she stayed down in the cellars, she would be sleeping on her own, curled up on a musty old curtain. Up in the gallery, there were soft, cosy sleeping bags to lie on, with nice warm children inside. She padded into the room, which was dimly greenish in the emergency lighting, and looked around for Anya, the girl with the blonde plaits. Some of the children were still awake, she noticed, although they were pretending that they weren't. There were a few bars of chocolate being carefully shared around. "Kitten," someone whispered. "Here, kitten, here, puss." Anya was right there, Bianca realised, almost next to the door. Purring a little, she went to sniff at her sleeping bag. "I hoped you'd come," Anya murmured, sitting up to stroke her. "I don't like it here in the dark." She shivered a little. "It was fun in the daytime, but now all those skeletons look like they're grinning at us. And there are the mummies. Lucy and Jack said the mummies might wake up in the middle of the night and walk around. They said they were going to see if they could wake one up once we've all gone to sleep." Bianca heard Anya's breath catch and she peered up at her worriedly. Gently, she nudged the top of her head against the girl's hand. "Oh, you're such a nice cat. I'm glad you're here. I keep hearing weird noises, like little scuttly footsteps." Anya rubbed Bianca behind her ears, and the kitten nuzzled her fingers. Scuttly footsteps? Bianca sniffed thoughtfully. Were there rats about? Probably they could smell those sweets, just like she could. "I'm not going to let any rats frighten the children," Bianca thought to herself, peering around fiercely. Her tail fluffed up a little and she flattened her ears. Then she climbed on top of the sleeping bag and stomped up and down on Anya's feet, padding furiously at the soft material and making Anya giggle. "You're so funny," the girl said, sounding happier. Bianca purred. Sometimes, just sometimes, she wondered if it might be nice to be a different sort of cat. The sort of cat who slept on a child's bed every night, rather than sitting up in the dark keeping watch for rats. Why should she have to work so hard when no one cared about her? Ma had been so cross about that torn dress, and Bianca was sure none of it was her fault. Sometimes she wasn't sure she fitted in the same way the others did. Peter seemed to belong perfectly, and he hadn't even been born at the museum. Perhaps she just wasn't meant to be a museum kitten. It was a very odd thought, rather frightening. Bianca felt as if the bottom had dropped out of her stomach. She didn't really mean that, did she? Then Anya gave a gasp of horror, and Bianca's head shot up. "That noise! It's those horrible little scrabbly footsteps again," Anya whispered. Silhouetted against the brighter light from the doorway was a dark, threatening shape. The humpbacked shape of a rat. Teeth bared, crouched to spring. The rat hissed, and time slowed for Bianca. She heard Anya whimper in fright, and a surge of fury ran through her. There were other children awake too. She could hear worried whispering, and one of them was starting to cry. For someone who a moment before had wondered if she was meant to be a museum kitten, Bianca was on guard at once. Her fur rose up and she hissed back, showing as many teeth as she could. No child was going to be terrified by a rat while she was in the museum. The rat darted away, and Bianca flew after it, bounding through the gallery. She was so furious that she hadn't thought about what would happen if she caught the rat. She only knew that she had to protect the children. Strangely, the rat didn't bolt down any of its holes the way the rats usually did. Instead, it kept on dashing in and out of different galleries, with Bianca always trailing a little way behind. It was very fast, Bianca thought, feeling the ache in her front paws. Really very, very fast. She was trying so hard to keep up that she hardly noticed the way the rat seemed to change colour. It had been quite a dark brown when she first saw it in the dinosaur gallery, but in the volcano exhibit it was distinctly yellowish, and while they were racing through ancient Greece, it was quite grey. Bianca put it down to the strange green emergency lighting. She was gasping for breath by the time she chased the rat into the dolls' houses and toys gallery, and there was a horrible burning feeling in her chest. The gallery looked quite spooky in the night lighting, and Bianca shivered. The huge spotted rocking horse was creaking to and fro just a little. The rat, which was pale grey now, dashed 3 times round one of the dolls' houses. Then it was cheeky enough to leap inside the open front of the house and dance up and down on the prettily set tea table in the drawing room. Seething with fury, Bianca sprang after it, but it was only as she chased the rat's thick pink tail up the stairs that she remembered this doll's house wasn't usually displayed with the front open. The visitors loved peering through the windows. So why was it open now? Bianca dashed after the rat into the nursery bedroom and then watched as it made a flying leap out of the front of the house. She was about to follow it when a strange shadow fell across the doll's house. The hinged front of the house was closing, she realised. Bianca scrabbled her paws against the little tapestry rug, ready to fling herself after the rat. But the rug slipped from under her paws and tangled her up. Bianca skidded right into a window, mashing her nose up against the glass. Just below, she could see the rats, 3 of them, looking up at her and sniggering. Then there was a delicate little click somewhere round the side of the house. Someone had just latched the doll's house shut. And so Bianca is trapped inside the doll's house by the horrible rats. And the other kittens have no idea where she is, and they don't know whether she needs rescuing. So the rest of the story is about poor Bianca stuck in the doll's house and the kittens trying to work out where she has gone. So I thought that maybe you might like to make your own Bianca and I had a lot of fun with this. I've made a template and an instruction sheet which are up on my website, which is www.holly-web.com, and it shows you how to make this lovely paper fan Bianca. I absolutely adore Sarah Lodge's illustrations for this series. Bianca, the problem is every time Sarah does one of the covers, I say that kitten is my favourite, so they're all my favourites. I absolutely love the way she draws the different cats, and I love Bianca's rather spoiled, beautiful face, and I really, really loved making my own Bianca, and hopefully you will enjoy doing it too. So all the instructions are up on my website. Have a lot of fun, and I really hope you enjoy reading another story about the museum kittens. Bye!